We got a email from Renee Golder that said that her views don't align with ours, so she was not willing to show up to this forum and talk with us. I did get a decline from Justin Cummings, who said he would be out of town, as well as Elias Gonzalez, who's running for supervisor. He is also going to be out of town, but those were polite declines, unlike Renee's. I did not hear back from Ryan Coonerty or a couple of the other candidates, Lee Hernandez, let's see, Scott Newsom, and Tony Nunes, no response. Just for notes for everybody. To get started, the Santa Cruz Homeless Union's goals are to organize the unhoused, to fight for the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, to secure housing, healthcare, and economic security, and to ensure that nothing about us is done without us. Homelessness in Santa Cruz is a complex issue, driven primarily by extreme housing costs and economic instability, which have forced many long-term residents out of their homes. Recent data indicates that the vast majority of the local unhoused population are not newcomers, but former residents with deep roots in the community. At this time, we would invite the candidates to introduce themselves, and we would like to give you 3 minutes each to do so. And please indicate what seat in office that you're running for. And please emphasize any experience that you want to mention in regards to homelessness and things like that at that time. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sean Doherty. I am running for Congress in California's 19th district against incumbent Jimmy Panetta. So I'm running because we don't have real representation in DC. And for those of you who don't know anything about me, I am the anti-war candidate in this race. I am the anti-genocide candidate in this race. I am the abolish ICE candidate in this race. I don't take money from billionaires. Wow, friendly crowd. I reject AIPAC, I reject the Israel lobby, I reject any foreign lobby. And does anyone know who Jimmy Panetta's #1 donor was in the 2024 election? Just say it if you know it.
AIPAC.
AIPAC. What was his top donor for his entire 10 years in Congress? Also AIPAC, right? Which is stunning because he didn't start taking AIPAC money until after October 7th. So just since October 7th, the money he's taken from AIPAC has eclipsed all the other donors. Really incredible. So I'm running because most of the people in this district do not want war. We do not want genocide. We don't want our freedom of speech attacked. We don't want our right to privacy taken from us. And we don't want our communities terrorized by ICE's paramilitary Gestapo force. What we do want is Medicare for all, housing for all. I have 1 minute left? Damn. College for all, childcare for all. We want strong labor unions. We want paid family leave, paid sick leave. We want a stable climate. We want to tax the billionaires out of existence. We want a representative that stands up for our interests, not special interests. And as a representative, I would expand rent subsidies, I would expand funding for public housing, I would provide zero interest loans, zero interest mortgages, and I am out of time. I didn't realize how much time I was taking, but thank you so much for having me tonight. I wish that there were more people running for this seat that would want to be here tonight. Thank you.
It's all right. Hi, everybody.
I'm Joy Schendeldecker. Sorry I'm late. I am a shelter worker, artist, educator, community organizer, and activist. I've been especially involved in electoral politics in Santa Cruz in the last 5 years, starting with fighting the city's camping standards and services ordinance and the oversized vehicle ordinance in around 2021. We appealed those as far as we could. We took the oversized vehicle ordinance to the Coastal Commission, and that's why we have a big reason why we have the RV Safe Parking Program, the 24/7 one. I believe that homelessness is an economic problem and that it shouldn't be policed. I think that our communities need to develop safety through care. We develop stability through equality and closing the gap between rich and poor. We get there by taxing the rich and by redistributing our funds, rebalancing our budget so that it's not so top-heavy, but it has a very strong foundation at the base, especially for our city workers, our SEIU workers, so that they can both live here and work here and provide good, robust bus services with safety, fully staffed. I think that we need to work on our affordable housing crisis, not by building so much market rate housing, but by building a good, again, foundation of affordable housing, preserving the affordable housing that we already have, buying properties to hold in community trust, extending deed restrictions, really finding every lever we can to have ownership over our communities and agency over our own lives. I will end there, or else I'll just ramble. I look forward to the conversation and everybody's questions. Congratulations.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. There's a lot that I could say about myself or why I'm running, but at the end of the day, I feel like that's probably not what we need from our city council members so much right now, and what we need more is a listening ear. I'm excited to be in this room with you guys who've been doing a lot of important work for the houseless population, and I hope that we get some time to talk a lot individually after this. I ran for city council because, I felt like the person who was going to represent me unopposed didn't necessarily hold the same views that I did. I didn't feel represented, and I didn't feel the more disenfranchised voices of Santa Cruz were represented. I think that what we need in our local government is, elected officials who will just humanize situations. I think that we need to do away with a lot of false information that's coming around, like I've heard at some DCC forums and so on, suggesting that houselessness is a crisis in Santa Cruz because people are coming here. I think that's false. I think that when we talk about such a large social issue of so many people who are systematically impacted and have lost their entire livelihoods because of it. And it is so many people in Santa Cruz, and there's also so many people who are working every day who are just one paycheck away from that. We can't afford to be spreading false information. We can't afford to be dehumanizing people. Sorry, I'm not super concise today, but yeah, I just want to keep talking with you guys, and oh my gosh, thank you. Gabriella Nowak, and I'm running for District 6 City Council. initiatives to make it happen. So, thanks.
Thank you, and thank you so much for putting on this forum. It's a real pleasure to be here. My name's Gillian Greensides, and I'm running for mayor. And I know some of you, but I don't know all of you, so I'll just share a little bit about my background. I've lived in Santa Cruz for now 51 years. I'm originally from Australia. I worked at the university. I was hired to start a rape prevention education program. And I did that work for 30 years, helping any student who had ever been raped, as well as educating the campus community, students mostly, but also staff and faculty, about rape awareness and prevention. And I moved that work into the city when I did some research and found that our city has a high rate of reported rape. Now, reported rape is a fraction of the total picture, but it's a very important portion, and anyone who reports rape deserves to get the best possible investigation and resolution. And I found that that wasn't the case. I don't have time to go into all the details. I tried to make a difference in 1981 when we formed a commission for the prevention of violence against women. And I would say that things have not changed very much since then. I was on the civil grand jury. One of our 9 reports was on housing and one was on rape awareness and domestic violence. And the city blew both off. The other work I've done over the time is environmental work. Some know me that think that the only thing I do is try and save trees. I have done a lot of work in that regard. In terms of houseless issues, I was appointed to this Parks and Recreation Commission, so I did get a chance to see the complex picture from the frontline workers in the Parks Department. So I think I have a bit of a breadth of view of the complex issues. We tried to get their situation addressed at City Council, didn't go anywhere. And finally, I did work with Jane Mio when the folks were at the Benchlands, and I got to see the houseless community is a very diverse community, and some are very deserving of every help we can give them, and some are not so deserving and could pitch in a bit better, I think. And so you'll probably find I have a little bit of a diverse opinion on this complex issue. I'll be happy to talk later. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for showing up, and thank you Keith and Alicia for having us and coming up with this idea and having a little community meeting tonight. My name is Chris Cronin. I'm running for mayor of the city of Santa Cruz. And I had a quote that I wanted to read from the writer Arundhati Roy. The trouble is that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you've seen it, keeping quiet, saying nothing becomes as political an act as speaking out. There's no innocence. Either way, you're accountable. Leaving Costco and coming over across Coral Street, you cannot unsee it. And I think some people on city council and our mayor hope people don't see it, or at least keeps getting swept away. And I think that discussing the unhoused, homelessness, I started in 1998, and I was on the city council, and I was just telling someone that traffic, water, housing, and the unhoused were the major issues in that election in 1998. And they continue. And in fact, I don't understand how this city council says, one of the candidates who's not here keeps continually saying we've lessened homelessness by 40%. That's what he reads in the statistics. And I just don't see it. I don't believe that. I believe my own. I would ask you to believe your own eyes and what you see every day in this community. I've been involved with issues around homelessness going back to that time. We had a restroom task force. We actually put out 10 porta potties around town as a way of addressing an issue. We had a police shooting, shot and killed a homeless man in 1999, I believe. John Dine, his name was. And we had a homeless task force. And so we keep reinventing and redoing so much of this stuff. We've had managed camps. We got into it with the Ross camp and the San Lorenzo Park. We had Supreme Court rulings, and you know, I'm of the mind that no, we should not be arresting people for the act of sleeping. We should be providing a place that people can go to. And I think we only have 345 beds right now in Santa Cruz County, which is not nearly enough space. I look forward tonight to talking about the word solution comes to mind. I'm not sure what the solution is at this time. And I agree with what Gabriella said, that we open up and listen to folks who have some more experiences than we have. So thank you for this opportunity.
Hi, my name is Amy Chen Mills. I'm running for mayor of Santa Cruz, and thank you so much for inviting all of us to this forum. I think it's really important to have a forum like this for the unhoused community, to have a forum and listen to the candidates. It's the first one, I think, that I've heard of, and I think that's really cool. I think getting organized is important, and showing up politically is important, and will be more important as we go along and as we lose federal funding for housing and so much support. I believe we're going to lose for the unhoused. I want to just share one thing before I get into my background, and it was the moment when I realized what it was like to not have a place to be. My boyfriend then and I had traveled to Key West from Miami, and we were looking for a place to spend the night. Hotels were full. We went to a campsite. The campsite was full. We couldn't stay. So we're like, okay, we'll just go to the beach and sleep in our car. So we went to the beach, and within an hour, the police were there with shining flashlights in our window. And we were like, well, where are we supposed to go? There's no place to go. And they said, you can't stay here. You just have to find a place. So we got back on the road and drove all the way back to Miami because we could not be anywhere. And that experience really impacted me. I kind of got a sense of panic about, not me, I mean, I had a place to be, but for people who didn't have a place to be. And I feel like that's really, really scary for people. It's scary to think about. It's something we have to address. And I have some ideas for that, and we'll probably get into them as we go along, but I do want to say that I worked with Joy and Reggie on trying to prevent the OVO at the time and make sure there were alternatives. And I'm glad we have some alternatives. I don't think that they're the right alternatives, especially the temporary parking downtown. I'm a journalist, I'm a mother, I've lived here for about 30 years. I worked in Santa Clara County in the jails. I worked in juvenile hall. I worked in group homes with kids in alternative schools, with a lot of people who were unhoused except for the fact that they were in jail. And so I really believe through all of my work, and my work was to see that everybody had wisdom inside of them. Everybody had the capacity to think in ways that could help them. And I didn't know what those ways were, but my job was to help them find that in themselves. And so I volunteered at MHCAN for 1.5 years when I was here. I started a nonprofit doing this kind of resiliency work throughout the country. And I just have this fundamental belief that everybody has wisdom and common sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys, that was great. So now what we're going to do is what we've decided on 3 minutes each for this? Or?
So I think because Chris has a time constraint and I'd like to get through all 4 questions, we'll start with 2 minutes.
2 minutes for this section. So I'm going to ask the question, so try to remember the question, and then each one go through and answer it. Thank you. So the first question is, what specific policies will you support in your first year to increase deeply affordable and supportive housing in Santa Cruz? And how will you measure whether these policies are actually reducing homelessness rather than just moving people around? We'll go to
Thank you. Okay, so the question is, first year, increase affordable housing and tracking the impact of that.
and real affordable housing as opposed
Right.
to what we're told is affordable housing.
Sure, okay. Well, like I said in my intro, I think one of the most important things is preserving the affordable housing that we have already, and also adding to, in addition to adding to the affordable housing stock. So I think some ways we can do that are setting up a community land trust, at least beginning that process. There are models that we could use from elsewhere. Working on finding funding to buy buildings that are coming out of deed restriction so that we own them and can make them permanently affordable. In the meantime, working with landlords, I just read about what's happening with the Palomar, and I thought it was interesting that it was reported that the city has proposed to buy the building from the owner, and the owner has declined. And they've provided a loan to the owner to try to keep it affordable for as long as possible. I thought that was an interesting shift. And in terms of building new, deeply affordable, supportive, and transitional housing, I think working with our nonprofit developers to, just continuing with those relationships, finding grants, and leveraging our power over for-profit developers to get them to pay in lieu fees and things like that, so we can basically grow our pot of funding. Thank you.
Okay, so just a reminder, I'm not running for mayor, I'm running for city council. It's kind of confusing at the same time. Well, I think first of all, there's 3 basic steps that we need to talk about, and that's, affordable housing, point blank period, needs to be housing that is affordable with 1/3 of the wage that a minimum wage worker would be making in 40 hours. Point blank period. That is the only logical way to call affordable housing affordable. And that should be available. Anything else is a silly excuse in my opinion. And then on top of that, we need housing that also is subsidized, because not everybody can have a full-time job. We have many neighbors who are differently abled than us, have had life circumstances where they're facing mental health issues, or I don't even want to say issues, but just circumstances. So we need, subsidized housing for the people who need it, and we need care for the people who need it. Because homelessness and the housing crisis, it's a health crisis that we have. I only have a little bit of time, so, some of the best solid ways that we can really be making and building this housing is, I think first of all, just going to the people who've been doing it. I love Barrios Unidos. I think they are a wonderful program. They have been taking care of Santa Cruz and honestly just America for so long. Those people who are willing to dedicate their lives to making our city a better place because they love it, that's who we can trust to collaborate with on housing. And I do know that they have, proposed affordable housing. And actually you can look at them about solutions that we can do all over town, tiny homes, apartments, all types of stuff. Thanks.
It's hard to switch from the how to do it to how to track it. So I realized that I didn't answer that. Might have to circle back.
Yeah, we can have a follow-up.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's kind of dumb to have 2 questions in one question.
All right, well, it's hard to do this. And I'm running for Congress, so that's a federal office, so completely different. First of all, I want to support what Gabriella just said. The minimum wage should be tied to the definition of affordable housing, 100%. And my approach to securing funding and increasing funding would be cutting the military budget. Such a friendly crowd, oh my God, y'all. We could, yeah, of course I'm gonna be friendly. We could double the funding for Section 8 subsidies by cutting just 5% of the military budget, right? And why not go further than that? I mean, Section 8, that's not ultimately the approach that I want to take, but that's a really easy short-term fix, right? Let's double, triple, quadruple the Section 8 subsidies, because we got people waiting 8, 10 years, whatever, to get their vouchers, right? So let's increase that. Wow, I go through time so fast. Increase funding for public housing, same approach, cut it from the military. And as I was saying before, zero interest mortgages, which would cut people's monthly payments in half. Let's use military spending for that as well. And as far as accountability goes, that would mostly come down to the local officials. And I would maintain close relationships with city, county, and state officials to find out what assistance they need. And if my buku bucks I'm taking from the Pentagon are helping out. Great, thank you.
Well, for the past 3 years, and as recently as last Tuesday, I've been working with others to try and get our city to actually have a tracking and verification system to make sure that the preferences that we pay lip service to for locals and our workers who have jobs in the city, but increasingly are being pushed out and having to commute long distances, that those preferences are actually implemented. And the city is shining that on. Now, we cannot, in this small 13 square mile city, provide affordable housing for the whole county and the whole region, and that's what's happening now. If we could have those preferences applied to our local folks and local workers, they would be more available. It's absurd that the affordability levels of income are tied to the area median income. And as people with big incomes move in, what is happening is that the levels that you qualify for are going up and up and up. So that if you are low income classification, it used to be, $20,000 less. Now you can earn as one person $92,000 a year and qualify for a low-income apartment. So some of our local workers, whom I know well and earn about $40,000 a year, obviously can't compete at that level. And so all the levels rise. So we have to do something to get our council off its butt and actually implement these preferences. That's a local issue. I totally agree that the big picture is much more, the military budget, etc., is where the long-term solution lies. But that's something we at least could do locally. And there were only 3 of us at council last Tuesday speaking to the city council on this issue. So I hope to see more of you there in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the question is specific policies you will implement or support, and then how do you evaluate whether they're working or not? There's 2 issues here. There's people who are about to lose their homes and probably the newly, looking at homelessness, and folks who do not have a home or at least are unhoused right now. This whole notion of housing first, sure, all the people who are like housing first, this is like, they all have a house, and they're all supporting house. What happens when there's no place for folks to go if you have a housing first policy? So they don't have anything to backfill or to support, folks before they actually move into an apartment. They built some units over there at Housing Matters. It's gonna help. But there's still a whole lot of people who don't have a place. So I would not want to criminalize homelessness, and I think that we should have managed camps. I think that that can work. It's proven to work. low barrier managed camps. But with respect to the Palomar, here's 94 units. 94 units of housing would cost about $46 million to build. You know, from 500,000 to 750,000 is more or less what a unit of housing costs right now. The Palomar is worth between 10 and $20 million. I would totally support, eminent domain if the owners don't want to sell that. And a lot of people don't want to talk about eminent domain, but I think in this case, it could be a much easier sell to the people of Santa Cruz to be looking at taking over the Palomar, the city taking over Palomar. I think the city should be buying apartments and remodeling them and revamping them. That's another place, instead of just thinking about building. We have a workforce here, we can stabilize present housing rather than pushing people out all the time. The last thing I want to say is, Willie Sutton, the bank robber, said, why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. And Sean pointed out very well, why do we want health care for all? And how are we going to get that? Well, the military has it. That's where we get it.
So to answer the first part about what can we do about affordable housing, we do have, money coming in now from Measure C, which is a measure that I supported, and we're going to need more money. So if you look at my platform on my website, I talk about progressive taxation. That means taxing, not sales taxes, which affect everybody, but taxing wealthier people or wealthier businesses that can afford to pay into a fund. And what we're talking about here, I think a lot of us, is social housing, meaning that we should approach housing as a human right. Because people cannot function well when they don't have a place to live. And I think that's how we have to frame it and how we have to see it. There's a program in Vienna that is excellent. They use personal income taxes, and I don't think we can do that here in Santa Cruz, but we need to look at other forms of progressive taxation. So I love the idea of a community land trust too, the ideas that Joy brings up, I agree with. And I think we also need to be purchasing land so that if we don't have the housing available, we do have places where people can have either managed or semi-managed encampment. And I think part of the issue is that some people are so used to living outside, it's hard for them to contemplate moving into a small studio where they're all by themselves. And so we need to be listening to people about what makes sense for them. There's community that's built in encampments. And in terms of the politics in this city, when I knock on people's doors, people are like, they don't want to see encampments. So how do we work together to create the kind of situation where we have land where people can be for the time being until they're ready to get into housing? Where they can build community and have their barbecues and have their cookouts and be creative together and help each other. So that's what I'm thinking about when I think about housing people. Like, let's do what we can, at every level that we can. And I think we also need to be positive about the good things that have happened, because if we're too cynical, people will just start to give up. And I think we've done some good things. Thank you.
Did you want to say something else, 30-second comment on that, Joy, that you...
Do you want us all to, none of
You
us?
can rebut each other.
You could, if you want to rebut each other on any of that, or we can go on to the next question.
Yeah, it's fine, I don't.
Okay. You answered some of this already, but the next question kind of leads into some of what you were just saying. The next question is, do you support ending or reforming laws and ordinances that criminalize unhoused people, such as oversized vehicle bans, camping enforcement, or public space restrictions, when there are not enough shelter or housing options available? Why or why not?
I think running for the seat is interesting because some of these answers are just like, obviously, and why would we do anything else? Why would we ever criminalize houselessness when there isn't other solutions? I mean, I think that housing is a human right and that we need to approach these, these difficulties that our neighbors are facing with empathy first. And on top of that, whatever, even if you do away with the empathy, it is illogical the way that we are going around with banning, ordinances, the OVO ordinance, You know, we have one parking lot where people who live in their cars can live, and it takes over 6 months to get a spot in there. There's only 30 spots in there. I know so many people who work 2-3 jobs and have been doing that for 4 years and are multi-generational Santa Cruzians and have been living in their RVs for years. Actually, you know, me and my partner were thinking about moving into an RV because we're not sure if we can afford rent. And people are wanting us to pay $1,000 to be on their land. I mean, the market is ridiculous. And so if criminalizing people who are falling through the cracks of a huge system-wide leak, it's not okay. And, you know, sometimes I'm at people's doorsteps and they say they like the OVO ordinance because they have young children and they just they wouldn't ever want a man living outside their house if they don't know. I empathize with that. And so let's all work together to get people better solutions. I mean, that's the only way that society works. So, yeah, I mean, I guess the short answer is no, I definitely do not support criminalizing. I don't think that houseless people should be criminalized for being unhoused at the end of the day.
I agree with what Gabriella just said. I also think it's important that people in the community see the unhoused so that they feel pressure to fix this. I love that Food Not Bombs serves people downtown. Stay in your face, and I think that's how it needs to be, so that's my answer.
We sort of gave it as an either or. I don't believe in criminalising people for camping or living in their vehicles. However, I don't support camping in our open spaces. And that's probably informed by, because I did spend a lot of time, not myself, there were 3 of us from the Parks Commission, talking with the frontline workers who try to monitor what's happening in our parks, preventing fire, preventing garbage, etc., etc. And I don't support our parks being used for camping. I do support there being alternatives to that. And if there aren't alternatives, then we need to work to increase the alternatives. But I also hear people say that there are some people who, when there are alternatives, they don't want to use them. I'm sure that's a small percentage of people. I don't know the number. No one has ever shared that with me. But to me, I would not allow that to be a reason for them going and camping in the parks. And as far as the oversized vehicle ordinance, well, I swim every year-round swimmer at Cal Beach, and we head out to Delaware for a hike before we go there. So I've had quite a few years of seeing the impact of some of the people living in their vehicles who don't know how to take care of the environment, who don't use the garbage cans, the big dumpsters that the city provided them. So I think that this is a complex issue. It'd be easy just to say, rah, 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 but I think it needs careful scrutiny, and I don't have time to go into it now, but I'd be happy to talk with anybody on this issue.
I'm of a similar mind of Jillian about open camping, especially in our greenbelt lands and also even downtown. I don't think that is the place to be, but there's a conundrum. Where are people supposed to go? And that's what, I've had so many people come to me on the city council who just want to move people on. They don't suggest anything. For example, why don't we have RV parking spaces where we wouldn't have people on Delaware? Why don't we have public RV parking spaces where people can go and the city council can figure out, well, can we take 100 vehicles, 50 vehicles? You know, that's, and we move in a direction, an organic kind of direction where we're managing and working with people. I thought the best thing about this governor's race is that the fortunes of Chad Bianco, the Republican, have been plummeted. And he is the most ardent criminalizer of the homeless. His policies would wreak havoc on many people in California. So it's really heartening to see his fortunes going down in this governor's race. I don't know about the current governor's care program. I don't know enough about it, but I know it's forcing people into care, quote, care. I know there's a person running for this position, mayor, who thinks it's okay to give people bus tickets out of town. So we won't see them anymore, I guess. I think I support the day center, and I did not support it closing. But why can't we have more than one day center? Why can't neighborhoods share? But I don't want to jump on it, because once you say where a day center is going to be, all of a sudden everybody comes to the city council meeting. So we really need to do it mindfully, which is an overused word, but I still like it. And thank you.
I would say that personally, how do I feel about criminalizing homelessness? I don't feel good about it, and that's a no from me. And I was very upset about the Supreme Court ruling that overturned the Boise decision, which I felt like was a backstop for, really what I think are the current administration's plans, which are to incarcerate unhoused people and put them in private, for-profit incarceration situations, whether prisons or whether big camps. And I think that's just another step on the road to fascism. I think we need to be very careful. There are a lot of Democrats who are going down this road now because people, one of the things I said at the DCC forum is the United States has shanty towns now, and we refuse to admit it. And that's because of the economic system that we have allowed to develop here. So I don't think we should have shanty towns, and I think in this community we need to address that in the many ways that I talked about. And one of the things I want to say is that personally I can feel however I want, but politically we have to think about this council. We have to think about what can be done. I've talked to Alicia about this. Like, it's one thing to say, yeah, we don't want to criminalize the unhoused, but you're going to need on this council 4 votes. So we need to work together to come up with solutions. Like, the complaints I heard about Delaware were, sewage and garbage, and so how can we find a place where people could park, like another armory situation, where people can stay and stabilize and get themselves together and not have to worry every morning about where am I now going to move my RV. And so I like the idea of working together. Sometimes I'll say to voters when I'm knocking on doors and they're very upset about homelessness, I'll say, look, we might not agree, in terms of personally how we feel about this, but I think we agree on what we want, which is to get people off the streets and into a place where they can feel safe. So I think that's what we need to work on the council.
So the short answer, I hope you all got this from my intro, is that no, I don't support those ordinances. I fought them from the beginning, and I would work to repeal them, yes. I think our ordinances should be written not with these long preambles, with all the whereas that discriminate, that set it up that people are horrible and they need carrots and sticks to get in line, but that the whereas should be more about, how people are kicked while they're down and what we can do to help each other out. So, answering that in a short way, I just want to go back to a couple of points. I guess this is partly a rebuttal on my part. I want to say something about deservedness. As I was riding my bike over here and sort of thinking about things I would say, going through my mind, like, everyone deserves a home, right? No, it's not about deserving. We are human beings. We exist, and that is good enough. This is about preserving life. on just a very fundamental level. And then I also want to say something about environmental scapegoating, because who are the biggest polluters of our environment? What is visible and what is invisible? So we have visible homelessness and sometimes visible nuisance behavior. Okay, that like really makes a big impression on people's minds. And I will finish my thought during my rebuttal time. Can I just have 30 seconds, or should I pick it up? Is that okay, Chris? I'll just finish my
Go ahead, I
okay.
changed my mind, go ahead.
Oh.
We can move on to the next.
Okay, all right, I'll try to be quick. Sometimes I talk really slowly when so we have a highly visible subset of problems here. But what is invisible? What is the environmental pollution from our car tires? That's one of the biggest polluters of our waterways. Septic tanks in the San Lorenzo Valley, leaching into our watershed. So just like plant that seed of visible versus invisible and the scales.
Chris, are you sure? Nothing?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Can I just add on to that with my 10 seconds rebuttal and just say, yeah, I mean, if we just think about it as facts, concrete is a lot worse for the environment than, say, a mattress. But we just have certain social stigmas. Yeah.
Concrete.
Concrete, yeah. Concrete. Yeah. We need to think about how we're thinking of it. Like this land doesn't belong to any of us. So.
Very quickly, the number one institutional polluter in the world is the U.S. military. And the number one institutional emitter of greenhouse gases is also the U.S. military.
One of the things that is hardly ever talked about is the environmental impact of homeless sweeps. All of that survival gear is going into the landfill, and we're not reducing, reusing, and recycling when we are throwing that away. I know that Just Keep with Food Not Bombs spends, hundreds of dollars every month, and we constantly, that's one thing the Homeless Union does, is we fundraise and we seek donations to replace that gear. That's not good for our environment.
Okay, so how will you ensure unhoused residents themselves have a real seat at the table in city decision-making or district decision-making instead of decisions being made only by housed residents, business groups, or city staff?
As representative, I will have a council of local advisors, and actually, I think I can say Alicia has agreed to be one of my advisors. So I would have a member of the Homeless Union sitting on that council that keeps me rooted in local issues and prevents me from getting sucked into Washington vortex.
You need 30 seconds left if you want it. That was a great answer, though.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's across the board. Those who are deeply affected by the policies being discussed are rarely at the table. And now we're talking specifically about unhoused folks. If I were in that position, on the power side of the podium, I would make sure that that happened and that was a priority. But it cuts through every level. The workers who do the work, whether that's the city parks workers, the county parks, they're never at the table. I saw that at the university for 30 years. The top brass in their meetings, making decisions, never asking the people impacted. So I have a deep commitment to that, and that would be unwavering on this issue as well.
I would just say ditto for what Jillian just said, as well as I have a track record of fighting to get formerly unhoused people on the homeless task force. So there would be a voice there for people who are living in the streets. I'm a big believer in the Homeless Garden Project, despite a lot of money being spent on that program. It seems like, wow, really? It's like millions of dollars and you get 17 people who are in job training. But still, I think it is an enduring program and it's quite a worthwhile program. I don't know how many people here go back to Vogel and Clark, and that's not a band. That's a band of bandits, possibly. That was former police chief and his deputy police chief or whatever, and they just wreaked havoc on this town. And I think that the job of a mayor is to communicate, as far as power goes, to the police chief, because the police chief then communicates to the police officers, and what are we going to do with people's stuff that they have? We're just going to throw it away? No, we're going to treat it. I just read in Vermont that they put it in storage for a long period of time, and they allow people to come and claim it. We don't just throw it in the dump truck. So I do think homeless folks should be part of the solution, right in the middle of it, and I think that we should look, as I said before, what Gabriella said, we should be listening to the experiences and the wisdom of folks who are houseless.
Having served on the homelessness committee for the city, during the Ross Camp time period, I remember people trying to get people from Ross Camp to city council meetings, and that was successful sometimes. But what I also remember was very hard. It's hard enough for people who are housed, who have a car or whatever, to get to city council meetings and then get up and speak in front of a microphone after waiting in line for half an hour or whatever, in front of this panel of people who are looking at you as if they sometimes don't see you at all, or they're on their laptops. So, I mean, I think it'd be good to have, and I think Alicia would be a great spokesperson for the unhoused community. I think we need more. We need people from different areas of the city and people who are ready to step up. And I see myself actually going to Coral Street or wherever else people are and sitting down with people and talking to them there, because I think that's probably the best way to do it, and coming back with reports to the council and to city staff. As far as police are concerned, I want to sit down not with the chief. I mean, that's fine. I'm going to sit down with the chief for sure, but I want to sit down with police themselves and say, how do you experience doing a sweep? How does that feel for you? And then the unhoused, how does it feel when people come in and take all your stuff and throw it in a dumpster, which could include really important things like, in one case, I was reading this book called Front Street that Don Lane brought, this author, and they threw away somebody's father's ashes. You know, those are the kinds of things that you can lose in these what are called sweeps. And so I also think we really have to educate the community. People don't know what's actually going on with the unhoused, and so Marcia's here. She was running a program to try to educate people at the libraries. And I think that's a good idea, but we need more of that. We need people to volunteer with others to go out into the streets and really get to know people, and that builds community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's this saying, nothing about us without us. And I think that's a rule to live by. I think it is challenging when people are constantly being displaced, when people are living under extreme pressures. And so a sort of community-wide level of security for people where they can rest and catch their breath and think through things is fundamental. I think, absolutely going to where people are, meeting people where they are, literally and figuratively, is essential as well. Doing mutual aid work and several creative projects with people who live outside, that was a lesson that was really reinforced for me. And then I also think, like, I've proposed in a general way that precinct assemblies would be a great way to have more bottom-up governance and less top-down governance. And I think these need to be supported, funded, especially for people who are the most stressed and have the least income. So in terms of bringing people who are experiencing homelessness into governance, I think that we need to be aware that that's asking a lot of people, and we need to be supporting them in like material ways, like we need to pay people, right? And we need to help people be more stable so that they can get to that point. People have great ideas, and people will talk to you about them, like with just so generously, and we can't put the burden on them. We have to do the work.
Anything you want to say, Chris, before you jam out? I know you got a time constraint.
The only thing I would say is, folks, we need to connect the dots. We have another candidate in this race, the front runner, who is, taking money from developers. He is a developer. He's taking money from real estate people. He works for a person named Matt Mahan in San Jose, who just cleaned out the jungle camp. And for a lot of those folks, didn't have any place to go. So Ryan Coonerty has learned at the feet of the city mayor in San Jose. And I think that we need to see what's going on here, and we're trying to clean up the town. And he says this, we want a cleaner city. This is all code for, gathering up homeless people and hopefully shoving them around and pushing them out of town and giving them bus tickets, I guess. So I think that I'm running a campaign that says Santa Cruz is not for sale. And I feel like we're selling it off. And when I go around and talk to people, that's what they're talking about, is all this stuff, these changes in Santa Cruz. And the buildings going up and the housing that's going in is not affordable housing. Most of it's luxury housing. And the last thing I'll say is, look at River Row, 175 units, 20 units are affordable. That means 155 units are unaffordable. And that's the kind of housing that's going up. That's what developers do. So I think we need to put the developers, the market rate developers at the back of the line, and we need to put the affordable housing providers at the front of the line. Thank you.
So I want to emphasize a lot of what Joy said, like co-facilitation. I think sometimes Santa Cruz can have a tokenization issue or like a performance issue. We have to think really seriously about the material situation of people in our city, how we can make that different, and how that can improve the city in general. So, I think long-term it would be really great to have a goal of having houseless people involved paid. It's very important. Also, it's like pretty easy to go buy someone a sandwich and sit with them and ask them what they've been facing. I'd say that right now in like my city council race, that's what most of my perspectives are informed by. I met a really sweet friend at Trader Joe's the other day, and she told me that she hasn't had a shower in a month and a half. That's hard to hear. She's having a really hard time. That's just not okay. Like, that's not, I spoke with, it's just hard, all the misinformation, like people even complaining about people coming from out of state to California. Like another person I met, like his feet were amputated because he used to be homeless in Colorado and there wasn't a shelter, and he was a blue collar worker, so then his entire livelihood is stripped from him. I think it's really important to go out, and there's so many amazing, friendly people all over Santa Cruz because houselessness is a crisis here, and you can just talk to people like they're humans and ask them what they're facing. Another issue, I'm really worried about is voter representation. All these people lost their voting addresses. I'm going around, we're talking about the election, and they can't really vote by mail anymore. There hasn't been a lot of communication about it, and it's troublesome.
People can vote without a mailing address. You just have to put your usual, like, it could be an intersection or a park or a landmark.
But it has to be in person, right?
To do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And people deserve mail-in ballots because also, like, they're busy, they have stuff to do, and not everyone, some people are wheelchair users, all the stuff. But yeah, just talk to people. That's good. I want to keep doing that, and I want to do more of it.
Can you walk in and register, Joy? Yeah, you can register and vote at the same time.
Yeah, I've been taking people every election from the streets to the county building, having them register and vote. They do that for years.
So we have one last question. It is sort of a two-part question. And then, I apologize for this. And then we're hoping to open up the floor for the community to ask some questions. And then also so that you can ask some questions of the community or the homeless union as well. So the fourth question is, Santa Cruz spends substantial resources on enforcement, cleanup, and temporary homelessness responses. What percentage of city homelessness funding do you believe should go towards permanent housing, mental health care, hygiene services, and safe parking instead of enforcement? And what steps would you take to provide the community with more transparency with the homeless spending? That's the second part. So basically, where do you believe that the funding should be most focused? How can you implement that? And then how can you provide transparency? And the reason why I ask this is because Housing Matters spent $4 million of the Encampment Resolution Fund on Live Oak Landing. It's the former Santa Cruz Inn, and it was supposed to provide interim housing for the people of Coral Street, at least 50 of those individuals. When you go to the website, it says it was open in October for intakes of this past year. It's not open, and the public cannot seem to find out, or the potential participants, how can they use that program? And from a homeless union perspective, that seems like fraud.
Yes, I think there's a serious question about transparency and where the money is going. I forget what year it was, I'm sorry, it was within probably the last 5 years, when a significant amount of money came from the state. It may have been related to early COVID. And I think I was at City Council, or I read the agenda, and, we're talking some millions, and I think the decision was to hire 4 people at high salaries, and nothing else, nothing for provision of the resources that you would think you would need. So that made me very skeptical about where money is going. And so I just totally agree with what you're suggesting, which is we need more oversight. The city, I was doing a little bit of research for this forum, and it was out of date, but it was a pretty in-depth research from Santa Cruz Local. And it seemed the takeaway was nobody really knows where it's all going and what it's used for. So that is serious, because we're talking big money, and that's what encourages people to lose empathy and sympathy. And so if I were, in a position to do so, I'd want better answers than people seem to be getting at the moment. So I'm not sure about the percentage of funding versus enforcement. I would think any funding that's coming from the state, if the city's putting $6 million in from our general fund, that's a hefty chunk of change. And so I think the public, as well as those who should be deserving of the resources have a right to know. So I'd support any involvement from those of you who know a lot more than me on how to get that done. Thank you.
So percentage-wise, I don't know. I'd have to look into all of that. I'm thinking maybe 80% on housing and support and 20% on enforcement of what, that's another question. I think that if we do have to move an encampment, sometimes you do because of flooding, or maybe it is in an area that is very sensitive and, we just need to move people, then we need to put money into storage and helping and giving people notice and figuring out a place where people can go and making sure they know. And my understanding is that the big sweep that happened on Coral Street a while ago that was so shocking, no one had any notice at all. And so that to me is like, these are people's homes. It's a tent, but it's their home. So I think we need to make sure that we're investing in storage facilities, which is something that Stina and I came up with on the catch, is to have storage for people so they can put their stuff somewhere, and especially if they just want to move around without all their stuff, right? In terms of transparency, so I need you to know I'm a journalist, and I'm writing on my Substack Moment of Truth Dispatch. I'm writing right now about how our districts in Santa Cruz were gerrymandered so that Santa Cruz together backed candidates would mostly win all the time. And no one in journalism has really been reporting on this, and so my idea would be, and I do this on my social media too, Facebook and Instagram, please come and visit. I talk about the things that are important to me. I try to educate people about what I know about what's happening in the city, and I would be doing that. Being a mayor, I would have access to the budget, I would have access to staff, and access to where is this money going. The public needs to know. And so as a journalist, I would be reporting on that. And I'm very used to doing that, very happy to do that. Please check out my Substack, especially in the last few days, Moment of Truth Dispatch on Substack. Thank you.
I think that enforcement is the wrong word to use when we talk about encampment resolution, those encampment resolution funds, largely code words for policing and bulldozing, including bulldozing and smashing plastics and batteries and stuff into riverbeds, for example. It's not what you think it is, or would hope that it would be. Sometimes these things are available as line items in spreadsheets, in budget reports. Obviously, public institutions should be, every department should be keeping track of all of the money that's going in and going out with line items, and then I think, put it online and let people look at it. Don't make people file public record requests in order to get this stuff. That's to me, just a kind of obvious transparency. The reports should exist anyway, right? For their own internal accounting. I think that, again, policing, not the way to handle helping people or moving them around. One of the things that we could do is move funds from policing to bolstering, say, the mobile emergency response team so that they have a bigger team. Sometimes they aren't able to respond in a timely fashion, whether it's people who have housing or not, because they're understaffed. It's a program that works and is helpful, and we could be giving more money to them, just for example.
First of all, I'm tired of walking downtown and seeing 8 cops harass a homeless person for trying to sit on the sidewalk. Since running for city council, I've been trying to engage in a lot more conversations to try and see how that might happen, and maybe, if you're gonna have 8 of you out in public, we can have a conversation about why you're doing that, and They told me, the cops who were harassing the last houseless people that I saw downtown told me that those decisions are up to local enforcement as to whether they decide to ticket houseless people who are sitting on the sidewalk outside of businesses or not. I think, first of all, City Council needs to talk with our law enforcement and, say basically, that's not appropriate. People need to sit, people need a place to eat. And I think that, when I talked to them, some of them said that they were, overworked or overburdened with the houseless problem. And so, so it seems like both sides could agree that funding placed towards more holistic approaches to care and more socially informed. I don't see why we couldn't go on a middle ground in that. I know that it would actually be a fight, but I would definitely support using that funding to allocate more resources to social workers, so on and so forth. As far as transparency goes, I keep on going on the website and it's 404 page not found on the City Council website. That's not okay. We need more transparency. There's not an excuse that we don't have it. If I'm on City Council, I'll definitely make it happen. I'm all about civic technology. That's actually my my special interest. I'm actually working with a student here and multiple students here who are part of Right Livelihood who are working with civic technology called Polta.is. And I think that there's just a lot of things that we can do better, and I'll push for them when I'm in there.
I remember when there was a lot of controversy around the phrase defund the police. All the controversy was around that phrase itself, but then when you looked at survey data, you found that most Americans understood that it would be better to spend our money on social programs that prevent crime than to spend it on police to crack heads. And in federal office, that would be my approach, and I think it's a common sense approach that would be popular if properly explained. So I would decrease subsidies for policing. The federal government is providing billions in subsidies, and my entire adult life, those subsidies, it seems, have been growing and growing and growing. And I've already said in other answers what kind of social spending I would prefer to see, including universal health care, housing. I am also concerned when it comes to accountability. I've looked at some of the tax filings for some of the local nonprofits, and I was alarmed by the salaries that I was seeing for the executives. There is a so-called homelessness industrial complex, and when I talk to a local official about why do we take this approach, it's because with this approach, the local government can spend less to have a program, because then that program is getting money from other sources as well. And so but we need to have a wider scope, a wider vision when we create these kinds of programs. I think that they could be fully public, and it would actually cost us less money.
Amy has a follow-up response, if we can pass the mic to Amy, please.
There's this other thing called the consultant class that the city spends a lot of money on, where I'm like, I used to actually run a nonprofit. We had very low overhead, but when we did hire a consultant, because one of our funders said, here's some money to hire a consultant, we spent so much money on this consultant, and it was the worst money we ever spent. Because she was saying things that she wasn't connected to what we were really doing, and I'm like, if we're on the council, if we are the mayor, or I am the mayor, we can go out and get that information ourselves. Oh my gosh, that was so short. I do want to say this one thing. When I am out on this, and I want to say it here, it's for everybody here. It's for everybody here. People in the county is the one who actually provides the social services, the county. Okay, and you're going to appreciate, everyone's going to appreciate this, I think we all agree. People in county behavioral health and treatment services are afraid of Ryan Coonerty becoming mayor. They are afraid, and they tell me that. And I just want you all to know that. Because his approach to the unhoused is get rid of them.
Austerity.
Yeah, and because he doesn't believe in harm reduction programs and street medicine and all the things that actually are happening that are helping people in our community. And I have not known where and how to share this, but I wanted to share it here. Thank you.
Okay, so this is the part where people in the audience can ask questions, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then, but I'm not in the audience, so I want to ask a question. Okay, so it looks like there's a lot of evidence that the economy is going to collapse, and already you see thousands of people losing their jobs to AI. And while they are people that are, were doing well until they lost their jobs, there's going to be lots of pressure on, and lots of people are going to become homeless. So during the time that you're in office, you are likely to see a doubling or tripling of the number of unhoused people in Santa Cruz. What are some of your ideas to address that fact, that sad fact? And then I guess we start with Amy.
What time does this thing last?
We're going to this is like a way that we can have homeless people live at the church for free all night. So.
Last part, what we were hoping to do is give the community a chance to ask questions, and then if anybody on the panel wants to ask any questions, and then we were going to do a moment of silence for those who are lost that can't be here with us, and then wrap it up.
Okay, I'll try to make this short since I took up some time elsewhere. I myself am very concerned. I'm concerned for everyone in the current economy and under the current administration. I myself have thought, what if we lose our home? And we have backup, we have family. It's not going to be a terrible tragedy, but I think that's why we need to be looking at all forms of housing and mutual aid. We need to build community. That's one of my platform planks is we need to start to build community now. Neighbors need to get to know each other. People need to get to know the unhoused folks in their community, and we need to start to help each other and rely on each other because the times to come, if they don't change dramatically, are going to be very, very, very tough. Thank you.
I think Tilly, that's down to Joy.
And then, I don't know, maybe since we're in a time constraint too, you don't have to answer every question if you don't want to. You can just if you want to answer this question, I'll take this question or something like that. That way you don't all feel pressure to answer each question. That way we can get a lot of questions in. I don't know how many questions the community has, but I'd like to get them all.
Yeah, you're fine. Thank you very much. I think we're obviously, as you laid it out, Keith, there's going to be huge impacts with people being unemployed because of AI, and right now their incomes are high, but they won't be soon. I think we're already seeing it. I think we're seeing an exodus out of California to places which are more affordable. Everything's relative, but they certainly are more affordable. My son lives in another state, and he could get his first house for $130,000, paying it off, that sort of thing. But that's very different from $1.3 million. So we're going to see, and we're already seeing, the population in the county has dropped. I've forgotten the figure, so don't quote me, but it's, it's 1%, something along those lines. I know people who are moving out of our city. They are all our low-wage workers. So we're going to see a class shift. Well, we're already seeing it, but no one's sort of tracking it. But definitely it's a class shift. And our affordable housing, as I mentioned, the levels are still a relatively high income. Now you can go down to extremely low, and that's more what most low-wage earners earn. But I don't know what side, it's speculation whether the houseless population, whether people will become houseless and stay in Santa Cruz, or if they've had a job, would move out of Santa Cruz. I can't predict the future, but I think that if those who are in positions of supposedly should be tracking this, they should be doing more to ensure, and I'm repeating myself, but everywhere I go, the affordable housing we're building, particularly at the extremely low levels, we should absolutely make sure it goes to locals and local workers, period.
I'll be quick because I know we want more questions, but this one's personal as a Gen Zer. This isn't just in Santa Cruz, this is everywhere. You know, we have an authoritarian takeover that is, you know, sending us to a meaningless war in Iran that is claiming many innocent lives. That is hurting the economy. We have seen the Strait of Hormuz close. It's going to hurt farm workers. It's going to hurt local businesses. It's going to hurt people who need to drive to work. It's going to hurt everyone. It's not just happening there, it's happening with AI, it's happening with data centers, it's just happening with everyone, everything. We have an ICE detention facility going in our next door, and this is getting pressed on us like it's inevitable, and it is not inevitable. And leaders need to stand up and realize that I don't care what you need to do sometimes, but you need to do something because this is humanity, this is all of our lives, and this is all of our future. And honestly, I'm a little tired today, so I'm a little short. And it's seeing how these things are connected, standing up to corporatization, standing up to privatization. One of my measures, you know, I think we need a tiered property tax. I think that once you own 5 residential properties, that property tax needs to increase in increments because corporate landlords are part of the reason why all of America is facing a housing crisis.
Just thinking about survival and the multifaceted intersecting crises that we're facing, environmental, economic, public health, and healthcare. You know, the people that I think I learned the most about survival from in practical and in psychological ways and in terms of community, building community, resilience and resourcefulness and sharing, mutual aid, people who are already living outside, right? And so I think those actually are the people who are probably the most knowledgeable leaders and teachers for the rest of us who either are on the brink or could be at any time. And I think this kind of fits in with a lot of the questions that you've already asked. How do we bring people into our participatory democracy? How do we build communities of resilience? Well, I think one of the most basic ways is just meeting people, getting rid of the othering that I think most of us have been trained. I know that I was brought up with it, but those walls can fall down really quickly. I mean, you all know this, right? I'm preaching to the choir. You know, building a culture in which we are more and more and more connected and interconnected and not othering each other, really learning from each other. That's a cultural shift that we'll need. We need to build a movement that is, that goes across generations and classes so that we are building our political power so that we are not experiencing being pushed out. We are pushing back.
Yeah. Why not?
Well, like I said in a previous answer, I would support cutting the military budget and using that money to double, triple, even quadruple the amount of money that's being given to rent subsidies and public housing. So that's a direct answer to your question. But since you brought up AI, I want to mention that I've been a software engineer for almost 30 years, which included several years of doing independent and academic research in AI. As a representative, I'd be one of the most tech literate members of the Congress. And I would be heavily regulating AI. Actually, right before I left my most recent job at Apple, I was the only one in my group that refused to use AI to do my job. I said, you're asking me to train my replacement. I want to see an agreement that I want in writing that I'm not going to lose my job over this. Like I firmly believe in protecting workers, protecting our environment, protecting our rights from AI. And since I have 1 minute left, I just want to remind people that a Chinese court just ruled that in China, it's illegal to replace a person's job with AI just because it costs less. So we can do that here and remain competitive.
I wanted to ask, because a lot of the candidates mentioned managed encampments. I wanted to know what managed looks like to them. Because like we have the Armory, and I think that's an unacceptable model of management because it's not managed by the people who live there. It's managed by high-paying board members and managers who don't necessarily know what it's like to experience unhousedness and living in an encampment. So I wanted to know what managed looks like to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. And now that I work at the Armory Overlook Shelter, it is really interesting to learn more about how things work on the inside. I feel like I have a kind of inside-outside perspective on that and how things do and don't work for certain people. I agree fundamentally that self-management is, where things should be. I think that having smaller congregations of self-chosen communities, generally there's like less conflict and more cooperation. And I think that should be encouraged. I think people can take care of themselves. And when we have those, even people, like Coral Street is the biggest example right now, right? Like, there are quite a few people who see visible homelessness that looks messy and see people behaving in ways that they weren't raised with as socially acceptable, or see people using substances publicly. There's a perception of unsafety, and people feel intolerant towards it. I think it's more complicated than that. People are exceptionally good at keeping themselves and each other alive and cared for, even if it may not look that way to others. To me, sometimes that's something that I've learned, seeing people who I thought were on the brink and seeing them years later, and they're still going, clearly caring for themselves and others.
Sorry, that was a weird answer. It's big.
We don't have to all answer these.
Oh, you don't want to?
Well, I just believe in horizontalism, so I think that if you talk to houseless people, then that's where your best theories are going to come from.
Well, my only experience of working closely with a group of folks who were all unhoused was when people were camping at the benchlands. I mentioned it before. And I did, quite a bit of work there, and with the BEST program. And there were members of that community, benchlands community, for want of a better word, who volunteered, pitched in and helped the work we were doing, which was cleaning out the ivy and invasives, picking up garbage, etc., etc. And the ones who helped out were terrific. Now, there were others who were not terrific, who threw their garbage everywhere, even though they could have walked from here to the end of this room to put it in the provided dumpsters from the city. There were people who were ripping branches off trees and using them. And there were some people in this diverse community, that's why I said it, you know, houseless folks are a heterogeneous community. Some members of that community stole all the bicycles from my friend who happens to be Spanish speaking, low income, in a subsidised house near there, and also stole their clothes out of the trunk of their car by jimmying it up. And how do we know they're from that community? Because they were lying on the clothes in that area. So I don't know, there's no easy solution. I think some people can take care of themselves very well and some can't. So what that means in terms of creating a community where a few aren't giving a bad reputation and harming others, I don't know, I don't have a solution. I don't have the breadth of experience you all have, but that wasn't acceptable. So there has to be a better solution than just saying people can manage themselves, in my opinion.
Thank you. I apologize for being rude also. I did answer all the other questions on time. I think, to some extent, like Jillian, I think people are in different states of mind. I think people are operating in ways that are highly functional and not so functional. There are things that happen in encampments that people, even in the encampments, will say, this is not cool, this is not okay. And so I think we need to accept the reality of that, just like, you know, housed people are policed, you know, we don't want over-policing of the unhoused, but I do think that you could have an encampment, and this is also, from my mind, like a political view on this, is how are we going to get the community to accept an encampment where people can be and be themselves as much as possible. It's a low barrier. And so I think we have to say semi-managed, perhaps, that's one of the words that I like to use, where you have leaders in the encampment who are helping to manage with city staff, who are providing sanitation and all these other services, and people who are watching out for bad behaviors, both inside the encampment and with help from outside the encampment. So that's my thought so far. I'm really open to having these conversations to make these things work. Thank you.
I'd really like to ask some questions. We're waiting an hour and 45 minutes for the community, but if you feel like you can do it quickly.
Yeah, I can do it. I was just gonna say, it sounds like your experience with the benchlands and people's experiences with unhousedness, like, it sounds like you didn't see San Lorenzo Park and how the systems there were functioning. They had different sections of the park where substances weren't allowed because people were in recovery, so they had special recovery areas. They had special spaces where people could be who were experiencing trouble. And when the city came in and moved people from San Lorenzo to the benchlands to the floodplain so that they would be flooded out, it broke down those systems. And so a lot of these issues that we talk about are created by other people imposing their beliefs on communities and not the communities themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So I've been researching and investigating and living as a homeless person. I'm now housed, but I did it for about 14 years. And so I really appreciate a lot of the things that were said today. But I think one of the central issues right here is the issue of power, because you're running for positions of power, right? And so there's different kinds of things that happen. We need to investigate, we need to research, but that's not necessarily what you do when you're in office. So one of the things that I've seen happen over and over and over again is people get into office and they're influenced by the other people on the council. And they basically are really weak. But because they're of a certain ethnicity or something, we support them being there because at least we have somebody who is not white, for example. Angela Davis herself said that that type of politics is over about something like 20 years ago. It just isn't helping. We have profound issues with these people in power ruining our planet, killing off homeless people. We've all been talking about that. And Gabrielle, I really appreciate you bringing up authoritarianism because we're deep into fascism, I believe. It's not fascism light anymore. So my first thing that I just want to say is we have a situation at the Palomar where a lot of very vulnerable people, some people on Section 8, some people are paying $1,500 for a room and a bathroom with no kitchen. It's cockroach infested, and the Palomar is going for a rent increase. So that guy's looking at $1,500 for a room and a bathroom that's cockroach infested to maybe something like $1,750 or $1,800. So this is a current political situation. And if all of us were to get involved a little bit, like to make sure it's visible, to understand some of the parameters. The city has been making deals behind closed doors. We've talked about these issues of transparency. So my question to you all is, what do you know about the situation at the Palomar? Since that is a homeless issue, and if you're interested in homeless people, you already know what the issues are. You already know what the nonprofits do and don't do. They're corrupt as fucking hell. They take all the money, they have really incredible salaries, and this is going over and over forever. So how can we take a local situation where we have, as people have talked about, like a building, Chris was talking about eminent domain. What can we do to support the residents? They're organizing, they've organized a tenants organization, the Palomar Inn Tenants Association. How can we expose the city's deals that are essentially helping the management and the owner to earn a lot of money off the backs of these people before she remodels or whatever they're going to do with that building? And how can we pressure Scott Newsom to do the right thing, which is make sure these people are not going to be kicked out, they're going to be given a proper notice, and expose all these other things. I think that's more or less.
Okay.
Thanks, Elise. I always appreciate your thoughts and experience. It's a big, big question. And I think it actually could go back to that unanswered question about tracking. It's heartening that they have formed their tenants union with the help of SCREW, the Santa Cruz County Renters Union. Thank you. And I think that organizing and collective power that's what we have, and we need to use it. So, and I think that they will be and should be the people that lead the solutions for however it is that building is brought into permanent affordability or whether it's public or not. Yeah, it's a big question. I think, tracking, some people campaigning have talked about like a renter's registry. We actually have a city rental registry that tracks, supposedly tracks landlords, but it doesn't track really renters. We have census data, it's not enough to get really granular. But we can, I think, keep records of people who have experienced homelessness, who are in affordable housing, who get housed, and whether or not they stay housed. And the Palomar is a good example of this. Like, if it becomes even more unaffordable for people, we'll lose them if they just enter into street homelessness. If they're in the shelter, they'll be in the HMIS system, but we do lose people. Like with the oversized vehicle ordinance, there are fewer oversized vehicles in the city now. The city does not know where many of those vehicles went. That's something that came up in the stakeholder meetings. We do lose people all the time, and people die. So I know that didn't fully answer your question, Elise. It's big, and for a minute and a half.
I'm looking for anything you guys have to say. That's great. There's no correct answer.
Thank you. And Amy has a response that you're good too.
Okay, thanks for your question and you sharing your experience. I mean, I'll be totally transparent, like, I mean, obviously, I'm young, I'm 24. I didn't really plan on being a career politician. I just needed to do something. I mean, like, the OVO ordinance, it's not okay. The way that people are talking about houseless people, the way that people are talking about the working poor, it's not okay. And so with that being said, you know, running for city council now, I'm seeing like the organizing, it needs a lot higher of a capacity. Like I've been an organizer, you know, I'm part of a co-facilitation team at Barrios Unidos. You know, I've been involved at, you know, Roundtree facility in Watsonville. You know, I'm not gonna go on and on, but it's like, there's a lot of things to know about and there's a lot of things to talk to, and there's a lot of people to talk to. I haven't talked to the Palomar Tenants Union. A tenant union that I have talked to that's facing a serious housing crisis also is the UC Santa Cruz Family Student Housing tenants who are facing the student workers with families are facing $700 a month increases. And so, sorry, I'm gonna run out of time. There's a lot to say, but on city council, I want to keep on being an organizer, and I don't want to be in this position of power and be hearing all of these voices in my ears that aren't talking with their boots on the ground. And so I hope that I get that opportunity to be there, and I hope I get the opportunity to continue meeting you guys. I'm also going to be graduating, so I'm going to have a little bit more time, which is very exciting. And yeah, I can't wait to get to know more, whatever happens with the election, I can't wait to keep organizing more in Santa Cruz. Yep, thanks.
And then I know Wes has a question, and then we can probably take a couple more questions, and then give you guys a chance to ask questions as well.
So you didn't want...
No, please respond.
Oh, did you want to go first?
I didn't hear.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Elise. There's a lot in your comments. I think the first part was more about if you end up in a position of power, how do you avoid the camaraderie with staff and other council members so you start to lose your politics? I'm keenly aware of that. You know, I've been involved in city politics, deeply involved, as I said, for 46 years. I've seen this happen, and I think one needs to be aware that it can happen to start with, and I think secondly you have to keep your connections with, ideally there would be, and there has been in the past, groups outside that kept the politicians, and particularly those who would identify as socialist or socialist feminists, kept them sort of more honest because they had a frame of reference that wasn't just city management, etc. That has dissolved, but it doesn't mean it couldn't be revitalized. So connecting with people in the community, and I'd be very interested in, I think all of us share this, that one of us were in that position, that we want much more connection with the constituents than goes on now. About the Palomar, frankly, I would need to know a lot more. I only know what I've read in the press and what I've heard, Councilmember Newsom claim has happened, and then the rebuttals from Hector Money to that. So I don't know enough to suggest a solution, but I would be eager to know more. So I'd be happy to talk with you at any time more on that. Thank you.
You know, Sandy Brown used to have a kitchen cabinet, and she would meet with people, you know, on the Sunday before a council meeting, talk about the agenda, and I am really hoping to have a kitchen cabinet, including a lot of people who are running right now, if I were to win. And so I'd want to know, what do you think? What do you think? We need a lot of research, we need a lot of solutions, we need people to keep me on track. And that's another way to bring in the unhoused voice, is to have unhoused people at the kitchen cabinet meeting. In terms of the Palomar, well, there was another project like this in St. George where people were going to lose housing, and they are going to, I think, slowly lose their affordable housing. But I do want to say that when that tenants organization was first organized, they went to Scott Newsom and said, what can we do? And Scott Newsom said, well, I don't know, there's a lot we can do. And I had a friend who lived there, and I went to, and they wanted me to come and help, so I went to a meeting, and then I called someone, Rafa, who's on the homelessness committee, and Rafa called people on the council and got that solution going, which I think has been at least good so far. I think the city, what we were just talking about is that that the city's thinking about maybe purchasing the Palomar, but the owner is resisting, and I don't think that every council member is thinking we want to, throw people out on the streets. I think they actually do care, some of them, about people being able to stay in that building. I think they did care about the St. George, because also it's just a very bad look to have people like politically. So I think we need to leverage that they care about both. I really think, with the flock campaign, Get the Flock Out campaign, I had to approach council members as if they could understand me, and as if they could get what I was saying, and as if they could also care. And I think that's really important. On this council, the mayor does not have executive powers to do whatever the heck they want, and so we're going to have to work together, and I think that's really important. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention, somebody mentioned about registering to vote and stuff. For the physical address, that was done by the National Union of Homeless in the 80s and 90s. And to go along with that, I actually tried to run for office, and I was denied because I could not prove where I had lived. So I was homeless at the time. What people are looking for is like a fixed address. They're not homeless, they are leaseless. They have what they have until the city and jurisdiction takes it away. I think about Camp Freedom, I think about, and that's here at Freedom. I think about Camp Resolution, that was actually in Sacramento. It was a leased property that the folks fought for. I think about Colin Wood, the West Street Commons, and I think about Camp Hope that was just recent in Gilroy. These are like sanctioned encampments or whatever, and they are rules-run based, resident-run encampments. Like this won't make a difference. In Salinas, we also had a rules-run tent city where we had our first porta potty. So that's just a little bit of education, but my question would be more like, how do we legitimize people, right? Okay, because basically they're addressless, they're leaseless. How do we, they're anonymous, oh my God, who are they? They might get me. But if we knew who they were and they stayed in a fixed location, then they would really be our neighbors. So getting an address, right, and having a fixed place to be, how do we legitimize people to, and would you accept like minimal health and safety standards and pass them over? And then that would be their address for the time until they get housed and placed by the system.
Sure. Could you repeat? Yeah. I thought I heard you
so
say
like
minimal health and safety standards.
Yes, ma'am.
Minimal.
So like you separate your food, your trash, and your pee and poo. And as long as that's all separated, it's not a blanket of trash. It's just tent and ground, and there's not rats running around. They don't have a chop shop going on or something for bikes. So it's like active criminal activity, and whatever they're doing is inside their tent, just like a domicile. You need a warrant to go inside a tent. Legit, and it's people's personal property, because real property versus personal property, real property always wins. So how do you look out for a little guy that's affordable? That's what they can afford housing. So would you be amenable to like saying that they pass these minimal health and safety standards of just everything separated and pass them over and they can stay right there?
Thank you so much for all of that, especially the history lesson. It's a lot I can learn from you, obviously, so hopefully we can keep talking. Sometimes, like, approaching these things, we can just go back to the basics, and everybody deserves equal rights. And we don't go and talk at people for what they're doing in their house, because that's their right, what they do in their house. And people who live in a tent deserve that right too. I mean, it's just, if you just think about it, it's like, when you're houseless, every single thing that you do is incriminating. You can't even, you're an adult, you can't drink a beer because it's public intoxication. That's not okay. Everyone deserves equal rights. Everyone deserves voting rights. Everyone deserves the same rights to do the same stuff in their house. yeah, we do expect people to, deal with their waste, and we give people solutions to do that. Everyone deserves solutions to do that. And I love this idea of leasing land. I think that the city needs to think, houselessness, we keep on talking about it. It's such a big word for so many different situations. You need tiered solutions. And, one of those first solutions is, how do we figure out that people who are living outside are safe, they are free to be human, they're free to have human relationships and to be humanized and to have a house and to live in that house. And I just think we gotta really put on, we gotta be logically sound about the way that we judge each other and realize that a lot of the things that people are inflicting, a lot of judgments that people are inflicting on unhoused people are just social biases that actually are very illogical. So, thanks.
We are running out of time. I'll just simply say, I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. And why not have a leased piece of land that's collectively run be somebody's address while they live there?
Yeah, thank you very much for that description. And it sounds very workable. No problem with that at all. I guess when it gets complicated is where. I think I once suggested, well, we've got lots of state parks, couldn't we just have one where folks who don't have a place to live could live? And the pushback was like a strong wind. No, that wasn't acceptable. So the where is a problem. And I guess the other, when I chat with folks about this, very compassionate people, not people who are negative, but they realise that there is a need often in a heterogeneous community, and we've seen it, of having some paid staff to help manage folks who may have issues that are not easily accommodated by just the fact you have a tent, and that's your private place, which it should be a private place. So I think there's a lot of variables that need bringing together folks who, like yourself and others who are really experienced in these issues, but not talk abstractly. Because that question of where would we do this in Santa Cruz, I'd be really open to it, but I haven't heard that discussion yet. I'd like to.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I actually think we should be paying people who live in the encampments to help run the encampment.
So at this time, I want to thank everybody. We've kind of ran out of time to do questions, but I want to invite you guys. Every candidate here knows that we have an open communication. The Santa Cruz Homeless Union is part of the National Union of the Homeless, so we intend to track these things. We're going to consider everything that was said this evening, and we're going to announce our endorsements by Friday. We're so thankful. This is our first forum, and so we're so happy that you guys came out. We would like to do a moment of silence for those that were unable to make it here because they've passed on or they were just unable to make it. And then also let you guys know that the candidates, if they want to do a quick plug to let you guys know how you can support them. And also feel free to support the Homeless Union. We are not a nonprofit, we're not funded. We have a little a container on the table if you guys want to donate, no pressure. If you could time our moment of silence, and this is for all our fallen brothers and sisters who are not here with us. Thank you so much. My name's Alicia Cool. I'm the president of the Homeless Union. Next to me is Keith McHenry, founder of Food Not Bombs, and we're so grateful that you joined us. And then I'm going to pass the mic if you guys want to give a plug real quick to how you can be supported in your campaign.
Thanks. My website is joyforsantacruz.com. It's FOR, joyforsantacruz.com. And yeah, small donations, passing out literature to your friends and neighbors. We can do some flyering, putting things up on bulletin boards, and just like helping to get out the vote. We're less than 2 weeks away now.
My website is GabrielaNoack.com. I have little flyers over there and you can get it. And just well, first of all, always just coming and talking to me and, gifting me with those conversations. And yeah, let's just all get together. Let's, I hope that this can sustain kind of as a movement. I hope that we can pass the torch of generations of organizers to other generations. So if you follow me on my Instagram, that's how you can get the most up-to-date kind of updates for events that I'm going to be having. I think that at my house I'm organizing a get out the vote party on the 31st, and I'm kind of near a voting center so we can bike there and stuff. And I'm hoping that that'll also be a place where everybody can come together and create community, and then we can maybe be talking more about how we can sustain basically local government involvement throughout the various grassroots organizations that are in Santa Cruz. And support people who are running, who are facing a bunch of hardship, who are facing those fees, who are, facing bureaucracy BS, I'm sorry that you faced. And yeah, we need to come together and make sure that we're actually getting representative voices on city council. And I should just be the very, very tip of the iceberg. There's so many more voices that we need on city council, and we need to all keep on working together to do that, so.
My website is seanforcongress.org. We've got flyers over there. Also got free yard signs here, right? Do we have it? Yeah, free. So out of the parking lot, go find Amanda right over there in the purple shirt. She'll give you a free yard sign you can take home. So do that. Also, you can sign up to volunteer. We're lit dropping. If you're interested in helping with that, you can talk to Amanda. We've also got a house party coming up on Saturday here in Santa Cruz at 3 p.m. Thank you. One last thing. We got Jimmy Padetta scared. He's text banking, and as far as we know, this is the first time he's done it.
Well, I'd just like to take a moment to thank Timekeeper. It's a thankless job, it's an important job, and you did it very well, so thank you for that. I've got some flyers in the back room. Our website is greenside4, the letter number 4, mayor.org, and thank you very much for organising and for being here. I very much enjoyed the back and forth when we had it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you from me as well. I have my flyers over there. If you want a yard sign, let me know. My email is on my website. You can email me really easily. I think one of the reasons that unhoused individuals are so marginalized by people in power is because they think they're not going to vote. So they don't have to speak to this constituency. Why is Brian Coonerty not here?
Yeah, right.
Why are the others not here? So it is so important that people vote in this election, in order to gain some power at the city council level and the congressional level. So please do vote. Feel free to reach out to me. And I think I'm so sorry we didn't get to ask you questions, because here's my question I would ask. What kinds of proposals can you bring to the council that you think, when we have a new council, we can get passed? That's what we need to know. That's what I would need to know as mayor. So please think about that. Let's work together and bring those solutions forward. Thank you.